Okay, next piece of evidence related to Dr. Morton, of course, is his will. And I have a summary of it, basically, that I'll go into here. Okay, so Dr. Morton wrote his will on January 20th, 1798. I got this from the British Archives, by the way. It was proved on April 27th, 1799, and he says that he works at the British Museum, and he's a doctor of physic, and that means medical doctor back in those days. He states that his present wife is the former spinster, Elizabeth Pratt, and that spinster means unmarried woman. That was just what the terminology they used. If you call anybody a spinster these days, they might slap you, but back then it was just common language. He mentions his estate in the Kingdom of Ireland. He bequeaths a whole-length portrait of Sir George Savile, Baronet, to his present wife, Elizabeth Pratt. A little side note, Elizabeth Pratt almost immediately donated that to some library or museum in the city of London. I mean, anyway. He also mentions that he has a home at Twickenham, and he names John Tatlow, that's the person that made the journal I just went into, as trustee for the administration of the estate, along with Henry Foster. And Henry Foster, the Fosters owned land right near the castle that Mary Pratt was born in. And I'm finding the approximation of these estates a little bit almost convincingly evidentiary that his Irish estates were landed in his lap due to his marriage to Mary Pratt. And I'm thinking it's got to be that Mary Pratt's father must have died, I'm guessing, just before the earliest entry in this journal, when William Tatlow needed to go up to Ireland to tend to some affairs. If I get there, I forgot what the year is, but I've already kind of noted that, and sorry, I've got a little bit of delay here, but I'm pretty sure it was around yeah, 1780 here. 1779. So I'm really wondering if Mary Pratt's father died in 1779. And I wonder what records that I have for her father, Joseph Pratt. And all I got is after 1754, but the thing is that her husband, Honoretta, or Henrietta, she's born Henrietta, but she called herself Honoretta Brooks, the first woman cremated in Britain, English history, had died 10 years prior. Now, supposedly Mary Pratt was born and lived in Cabra Castle. Okay, and seems it's same county, County Cavan. I'm pretty sure that it was pretty close. Had to have been pretty close. So, okay, so let's just get back to this. So that's just a bit of a mystery, but the Fosters did live next door to Cabra Castle. If you search Cabra Castle at Google, you'll find an account that even talks about the Pratts a little bit, and also talks about how the Fosters were at least neighbors. So, you know, unless they got the history wrong over there at the Cabra Castle website, they might. It's too coincidental. I don't think it's wrong, so, you know, it's got to be right. And so that kind of makes me wonder. Okay. Now, he also has some money being paid out of his estate at the rate of £800 a year, and he's saying that he's paying back Elizabeth Pratt's dower, or paying her dower. Usually when basically for the most, it used to be that if you had two wealthy families, um, then the daughters were usually disinherited, unfortunately, and so the way to get that keep some wealth with the daughter was to pay a dower, actually, to the family, almost buying. It's like buying your daughter, to buying your wife or something. It's really kind of odd, but anyway. Um, so in this case, he's kind of paying back the dower. I'm not sure. She must have brought some wealth with her. Supposedly she did, according to the Scott and Gentleman's Magazine, but according to the Savile family, no money ever materialized. So I'm just kind of wondering what happened. It may have been that the money wasn't available. But again, when I look at Henrietta Honoretta Brooks's her will, she doesn't give a lot away to any one particular person. And it certainly wasn't Mary Pratt. I mean, she may have given her 100 pounds, and there were a number of people who got 100 pounds. 100 pounds may have been a year's salary, but that's about it. And then he also mentions his coat of arms in the manner that I went over earlier. He names he names Charles Carr as his son. And he also names says he has granddaughters, Mary and Elizabeth Danzy. And he mentions at that point, because he wrote the will for James Danzy as his grandson, but James Danzy actually predeceased Dr. Morton, and I'll look up exactly to what extent that is in just a second. Let's look at Mary Pratt's marriage to George Savile, and no. Sorry, got that wrong. It was Charles Morton's marriage to Mary Berkeley, who had a son, daughter Elizabeth Morton, who married A. James Danzy, and James Henry Danzy, who was born in 1769, ended up dying October 31st, 1797. And so that's why in January 20th, 1798, Dr. Charles Morton wrote his codicil. So, he's mentioned in the regular part of the will, but the codicil obviously mentions that James Danzy is no longer living, and so he adds some other provisions. And he alternatively bequeaths his granddaughter's inheritance to Joseph Pratt. That is the inheritance that he would have had by marrying Mary Berkeley, and it's kind of implied that Mary Berkeley accrued Twickenham to Dr. Morton because Twickenham was the property left to them, and so was Westmoreland, not the Irish estates. The Irish estates are not mentioned at all with relationship to his daughters, but are mentioned in relationship to Charles Kerr. Okay, and he mentions that this Joseph Pratt is Joseph Pratt, the son of Reverend Joseph Pratt, and I'm guessing that would be the brother of Elizabeth Pratt. So let's go back over here and take a look. If I got a Joseph Pratt in there. Yes, I do, and that he didn't die until 1831, so I think he was a contingent beneficiary. Now, by the way, Elizabeth Pratt's father was also a Joseph Pratt, but her mother was an Elizabeth Chetwood, and there was a Knightley Chetwood. And if you go far enough back on that line, you're going to end up finding out that Elizabeth Pratt descends from Sir Audley Mervyn, who made a name for himself speaking in the Irish Parliament about something to do with being in union with the United Kingdom. I don't have that part of history straight. Now that isn't the end of the mystery. Well, it's the beginning. Now is the beginning of the mystery, starting with Dr. Morton's will. Now I had, in looking here, let's see if I get